This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222. In some clinics who are very mindful of their data may cancel patients who in other clinics would have gone on to an egg collection and a potential pregnancy. And by cancelling those patients, you improve your apparent success rate. So cancellation rates vary from clinic to clinic. In some clinics, it's as high as 15 to 20%. In other clinics, it's 5 or 6%. And because the cancellations, or the people who don't cancel, are taking patients to give them a chance of a pregnancy, but they are probably lower chance of success patients, because there are only 1 or 2 follicles, their overall success rates will appear to be less. But they're probably the same if you look at the same group of patients. So what I'm saying is there's data and there's lies. And don't necessarily believe that a clinic is bad just because their success rate is 2 or 3% below another clinic. I've always been a little bit dubious about these publication of results, because clinics, in trying to compete in a competitive market, will do their best to make their clinic look as though it's the best. And I think it does potentially happen that there are patients who might have got pregnant who won't get pregnant because they've been cancelled unnecessarily. I said earlier that age was a major factor, and certainly in both in nature and in IVF clinics, the older you are, the less likely you are to have a baby. If you are the average around Australia for a 30 to 35-year-old, from one embryo transfer is around about 33%. When you get to 40 to 45, it's dropped to around about 10%. So that's the impact of age. And unfortunately, to date, science has not been able to reverse that process. It's mostly about egg quality, and unfortunately, egg quality, the things that determine that, seem at this point in time not to be able to be reversed. But cell biology advances all the time, and certainly in animal work, there's some promising information suggesting that some of those aging changes can be reversed. But in humans, nothing to date, despite what you read across the internet and despite the claims of particular medications, natural herbs, all of those sort of stuff, all garbage. It doesn't actually change the outcome, no matter what people claim. What you've got to do when you worry that you're infertile is go to a specialist who's highly qualified in the area of infertility. You wouldn't go to a general gynecologist if you had cancer. There are specific gynecologists who deal with gynae cancer. Likewise, in the fertility world, you need to find a fertility specialist who is actually trained in fertility and the various managements. There are many specialists who dabble in IVF, but they're not necessarily the people that you want to see, because they're ultimately not experienced, not aware of the latest techniques. They tend to follow a recipe book that the big clinics who employ them give them, and I find it a little disappointing. I also have concerns in those scenarios that many patients who I see who've been to the generalists have been offered IVF when perhaps they didn't need it. We all worry about over-servicing, of having treatments that are not necessarily good for them, but they were necessary. And for instance, polycystic ovaries, there's a lot of treatments, medical treatments, polycystic ovaries, that probably do as well or better than IVF without having to go through the expense of it. So find a good specialist and ask them the questions about success rates in their particular clinic and how they compare. Again, the good specialist will give you the right answers, the right gen. They've got nothing to hide. But I am concerned at times unrealistic views are presented by some of my colleagues. So success is mostly related to age or other factors like ovarian reserve, number of eggs you've got in your ovaries. Sperm quality is also obviously a factor, so there are a whole series of investigations that need to be done, and it's that point that a good specialist will give you an opinion about what your chances of success are. But as a general introduction, that website I talked about is a useful piece of information.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.